This story is told in the perspective of a girl.
Are you on a dating app? It is quite hard to find someone who isn't on one nowadays. This was my experience when I came on a dating app. It all started when the new kid in our school, Tom, convinced me to download this new dating app called Hinder. If you're not aware, it is an app that lets you talk with others who seem interesting to you and even end up in a relationship with them. Like many of my other friends, I was also interested about what this thing was all about. My friends and I were a bunch of nerds, so we didn't download this particular app in hopes of getting a boyfriend or anything. I hate to say this, but our idea was to catfish people and eventually have them chat with us and get some fun out of it. Keep in mind that I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed when it came to online safety, but what I'm going to share with you definitely opened my eyes to the dangers of dating apps, and I hope by the end you too will be safe by using one. Tom was a very intelligent kid. I had many classes with him, so I knew him pretty well. Unlike other boys, he wasn't too athletic, but he was surely an amazing techie. Whenever any of my friends or even myself had issues with using our phones or computers in tech class, we found ourselves in front of him even though we had a teacher. I initially thought he had great ambitions in life. I can recall one time when I felt he would make a great tech support at a big tech firm. Like many boys in my school, Tom desperately wanted a girlfriend. But as I said, he would get rejected whenever he tried to get one because the girls thought he was nothing more than a dork who always had his eyes on either computers or phones. Anyways, I gave in and made a profile on Hinder soon after Tom told me to do so. And that's when I met Jake. Jake wasn't someone from my school. At first, I thought he was a kid from another school, but as I looked into his profile, I found out that he was much older than any other kids in any schools. He seemed nice enough with his sweet messages. As we started talking, I found out that both of us had much in common. I told him that I was a high school student, and he said he was studying as a postdoctoral researcher at a big university. Although we texted each other for many weeks, we never met in person, so I thought I should meet him sometime at a restaurant. He said he wasn't a person who liked crowded or busy places, so he said it wasn't a good idea to meet him in person. But eventually he invited me to his house instead. We never talked to each other over a video call or even a voice call too. We have just been chatting through text. I thought to myself, would he not feel the same way? He has only been chatting to a person he has never talked to or even seen in a video call, so why would he feel safe to have them at his house immediately? Not knowing how to respond to the question, I stopped texting Jake. But during this time, I also received texts from Tom complimenting my looks. He said I looked very pretty and that he liked my eyes. I brushed it off thinking he wasn't trying to flirt with me, and besides, even if he did, I already started liking Jake. I made it clear to Tom in person that he wasn't my type. Then, he yelled at me and said, "Is it because you're talking with Jake? I know you like Jake." What the hell? How did he know that I was texting Jake? I didn't get to ask him anything, as he had the whole school looking at us from screaming on the top of his lungs and laughing as if this were something funny. Eventually, I got back to talking to Jake, but he started to creep me out a lot. He knew where I was, even when I didn't tell him, and he would act differently even if I mentioned another guy's name, like Tom's, for example. Valentine's Day came, and Jake insisted on me coming over to his place. I was excited at first, thinking it would be a romantic evening, but then Jake's behavior became more and more creepy. When I came to his house, I noticed that it was a creepy looking mansion that came in horror movies. I was hesitant to go in at first, but then Jake came outside and asked me to come in. The house seemed decent on the inside though. The only thing that made me uncomfortable was this odd feeling that someone was watching me. Jake kept asking me strange questions, like if I had any ex-boyfriends he needed to take care of. I insisted that I didn't have anyone like that, but he kept getting closer and closer to me and started making weird facial expressions. That's when I knew that I had to get out of there. I made up some excuse about needing to run to a store and practically sprinted out the door. But I guess I should have stayed, because the next thing I knew, someone wearing a mask came charging towards me at full speed with a huge knife. I immediately ran away and managed to escape. I thought this was all Jake's plan to kidnap me and do something worse. I called the police and ensured that I told him everything about Jake and how I met him on Hinder. The very next day, I saw 4 or 5 police cars parked in front of my house. I went outside to ask them what happened and saw both Jake and the masked man who tried to kidnap me in the previous evening. I was shocked to see that it was only the masked man who was getting arrested and not Jake. I went to another police officer standing right beside me and told him to arrest Jake as well. But what he told me next will shock me forever. He asked Jake to tell me that he was nothing more than an undercover cop who tried to protect me from the masked man who was none other than Tom. Apparently, Jake received information that a wanted criminal was roaming the area, stalking women and luring them into having a relationship with him to do things that I don't want any girl to experience. Tom's real name was Jason. He did not belong to any school, and he was someone who escaped juvenile. Tom had many friends from the dark web who would assign him missions and pay him money for successfully carrying them out. One of the missions he received was to kidnap me and hand me over to his friends from the dark web so that they could do things that I don't want to describe. It seemed like they had tried to kidnap me many times, but he failed to do so thanks to Jake. To this day, I'm thankful for Jake for saving me whenever Tom tried to attack me. I recently heard that Tom escaped juvenile again. If you ever see him, remember that he has multiple names, countless relationships with girls, and was already convicted for rape and kidnap. He can be anyone in your school, who knows? After that incident, I deleted the dating app. This experience definitely opened my eyes to the dangers of relationships. This Valentine's Day, I'll be spending it with my friends, safe and sound. And as for Tom, well, I hope I have to never see him again.
Are you tired of swiping through boring profiles on other dating apps? Then try Hinder, the app that promises love at first swipe. With our unique algorithm, we match you with the most compatible yet slightly creepy partners. Don't waste your time with the same old apps. Download Hinder today and let us introduce you to your perfect match, whether you like it or not. Love at first swipe, only on Hinder.